I really thought that my motivation was love only. I really thought I was like Mother Teresa like that. I just loved people. I just cared about people. And I do love people and care about people, but it wasn't that pure. Because what came out, this was all around a situation that my sister was in, an abusive situation that she was in, that I was trying to take on so badly and trying to get her to leave. It was like a 5-alarm fire for me every fucking day of my life, just being like, what else can I throw at this situation to make her leave, you know?
To get this outcome correct.
Exactly. Because it was so distracting and it was so distressing. And my therapist was crying and it was like, what am I going to do? I've done everything that I can. And she said, Terri, let me ask you something. What makes you think you know what Jenna needs to learn in this life?
That is so good. And people could say, well, it's because these are moral codes. These are like the golden rules. Like there's like, you can find proof of laws and rules you're supposed to follow, but ultimately that's not it.
Well, she was basically saying, you don't know. And I first resisted and was like, well, I think we can agree. She doesn't need to do it in a house in the woods with a crack addict who's abusive and no running water. I mean, I feel like, can we agree to that? And she was like, no, because Terri, I'm not God. I don't know.
Maybe that is what she needs.
Yeah.
But how do you know when someone's actually in a bad situation that that's where they're supposed to be?
Well, the thing is, it's their situation. So I had done everything I could to get her out, and in the end, my therapist helped me see that what I need. So I didn't even know I had a choice, is my point.
Okay.
I thought I was doing what I must do as a good sister, which was to never quit. And she was like, that's not necessarily what you need to do. She said, but you can draw boundaries. You don't need to let her talk to you about this. And that's what I did. So she helped me walk me through. This is the beginning of my whole boundary journey, right? Where I walked me through and I was able to say to her, listen, I love you. And if you ever want to get out, I will always be your person, right? Because that's normal. I can help her in a normal way, not taking over the whole thing. But I also can't, I can't have you talking to me about this guy every day. It's so painful for me. And she said, I totally understand. I love you too. Maybe we talked about twice in 9 months and we've been talking quite a bit. And then she called me up and said, are you still my person? And I was like, putting on my sneakers right now, jumped in my car, went and got her. She got back into school. She got sober. And here's the most important thing is that instead of Terri being the hero of Jenna's story, Jenna is the hero of her own story.
That gave me chills. That's hard to wait for someone to be their own hero. Why do we think that we should be the hero? Why do HBCs want to be why do we come in like that?
It's not, I don't think it's a conscious thing about wanting to be the hero.
Right.
I think it's that it's a knee-jerk reaction to their pain. And we are so allergic to other people's pain that we just need it to stop right now.
Why are we so allergic? Is it our traumas?
Yeah, and it's control. It's control. We don't like the way it makes us feel. And so much of what I walk you through in this book is we can learn to tolerate the way that we feel, and that it's very loving to tolerate the way that we feel. And even if people listening, if the only thing you change from listening to this interview is that instead of auto advice giving, you start asking expansive questions in your relationships, your life will change. Your relationships will change. Because when we control everything, people don't really know us, right? Because we don't want to be vulnerable. So the lack of receiving, the lack of allowing, the lack of surrender, because that's really what's on the other side of recovery from being an HFC, is surrendering in the most expansive and beautiful and delicious way, like a whole different way of living when you just go, that's not for me to control. I'm going to pour my time and energy into nourishing myself. I call it self-consideration because it's so much more than like self-care, which sounds like a manicure, or self-love, which is even more and more, no one even knows what that is. So self-consideration is something that we can actually look at and go, what is self-consideration? Do I have the bandwidth to help this person who just asked me? If the answer is no, then I'm going to say no.
do I have the bandwidth to help this person? Because people are going to come in all the time, but it's like, you have to weigh it out. Like, yes, it's not everyone is yours to save. If it's rejection in your body, if you're not feeling a full body yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a no.
Yes. And because we're human beings in relationships with other human beings, there's going to be plenty of times with family and partners and husbands and whoever. Of course, we're still going to do shit we don't want to do because that's called being a human being on planet Earth. But if we're doing it consciously, when my husband wants to get tickets to go see the opera, let's say, because he loves all that shit and I hate it, I go, not the Grand Ole Opera, the actual opera. And I don't hate it. I just don't, it's not my thing, but he loves it. So I make a conscious choice to go, get dressed up, have a great time. I never make him feel bad about it. He will not listen to this, I imagine, but he always thinks I had a great time. And I do that because that's a conscious choice. His happiness matters to me, and he does the same for me on a million things. So I think part of what we're talking about is how do we move into making these decisions, whatever they are, mindfully and consciously. The first thing we have to do is just slow down. Just breathing.